So what really holds a nation's military together? It's so much more than just fancy hardware or brilliant strategy. At its very core, it's all about discipline and a strict code of conduct. Today, we're going to dive into Chapter 8 of the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS, which is the legal rulebook designed to protect the very heart of a nation's defense, its armed forces.
Think about it. The real strength of any military comes down to its discipline. It's that unwavering trust in the chain of command, right? And the absolute commitment of every single service member to do their duty. Without that, you've got chaos. And that's exactly why this discipline is seen as the bedrock of national security.
But that begs a really important question, doesn't it? What happens when that bedrock is threatened, not by some outside enemy, but from the inside? When you've got issues like mutiny or desertion or just plain insubordination? What legal framework is there to protect the integrity of the entire force?
Well, that is precisely what Chapter 8 of the BNS is all about. And to make it super easy to follow, we're going to break down its key sections into 3 really clear categories. It'll show you exactly how this legal shield works.
Okay, before we jump into the specific laws, there's one central concept you absolutely have to get your head around, because it's the thread that ties almost all of these laws together. And that concept is abetment. So what is it? Well, to put it simply, abetment is the act of encouraging, pushing, or even just helping someone else to break the law. You see, you might not be the one who actually commits the crime yourself, but if you're the one who convinced them or assisted them to do it, then you're abetting it. Now, keep this idea in your back pocket, because it is crucial to pretty much everything that follows. All right, our first category of offenses is all about protecting the military's strict hierarchy. These are the laws that target any action trying to undermine the authority of a superior officer. And this is where we really see that idea of abetment in action, often dealing with some very serious crimes.
What's really interesting here is how the law creates a kind of escalator of consequences for mutiny, which is basically an open rebellion against officers. Section 159 makes it a crime to simply try to incite a mutiny. Just the encouragement itself is the offense. But then Section 160 raises the stakes. If that encouragement actually works and a mutiny breaks out, the penalty becomes way more severe. The outcome directly changes the punishment.
And we see this exact same pattern when it comes to assault. Section 161 makes it a crime to encourage a service member to assault their superior. But, just like with mutiny, if that encouragement leads to a real physical assault, Section 162 kicks in with a higher penalty. It's sending a clear message. Inciting bad behavior is a crime, for sure, but inciting behavior that has real physical consequences, that's an even bigger one.
And finally, in this category, you have Section 166, which kind of acts as a legal catch-all. It covers abetting any general act of insubordination, which is really just defying a lawful order. So this means that even if things don't escalate to a full-blown mutiny or assault, just encouraging any defiance against the chain of command is still a punishable offense.
Okay, our next category shifts the focus a bit. We're moving from challenging authority to abandoning it completely. This part deals with desertion, the act of illegally leaving the armed forces, and, just as importantly, the legal trouble you could get into if you try to help a deserter.
What's so fascinating here is the logical chain the law creates. It starts with Section 163, which is the initial act of encouraging someone to desert. But then it moves to Section 164, which covers harboring a deserter, meaning if you knowingly hide someone who is already deserted, you're also committing a crime. And finally, Section 165 gets incredibly specific, even putting a duty on merchant ship captains to make sure deserters aren't hiding on their boats. It really shows how the law tries to cut off every possible escape route.
And that brings us to our third and final category, which tackles a completely different kind of threat: deception. This law is simple, but it's really significant because it deals with the crime of impersonating military personnel.
Section 168 is crystal clear on this. It's not just about wearing a uniform you're not supposed to wear. The absolute key phrase here is deceptive intent. The law is targeting people who wear the uniform or carry military tokens specifically to fool others into believing they're a service member, probably for some kind of personal gain or shady purpose.
And just as a quick side note, it's worth pointing out that the law itself, in Section 167, is very specific about who it applies to. It clearly defines who exactly is subject to these military-specific rules, so there's no confusion about its jurisdiction.
So let's do a quick recap of what we've just covered. Chapter 8 of the BNS is really built on 3 main pillars.
First, it protects the chain of command by punishing anyone who encourages mutiny, assault, or insubordination. Second, it protects duty and commitment by criminalizing the act of encouraging someone to desert and helping those who run. And third, it protects the very identity and integrity of the armed forces by outlawing fraudulent impersonation. When you put all this together, it leaves you with a pretty powerful final thought. The fact that such a specific and strict set of laws even exists just for the military, well, that tells us something profound about its place in society. It really makes you ask, what do these rules about discipline, duty, and identity truly reveal about the unique and uniquely vital role that the armed forces play within a nation?